Hello and welcome to today's episode of the On the Up podcast brought to you from Moneypenny. I'm your host Dan Marshall and today we're doing things a little bit differently. So far we've recorded 7 episodes with 7 equally amazing speakers and we're going to talk about 7 of the best things I've learned so far. So if we think back to our first episode, The Building Blocks of Growth, where I spoke to international sales and marketing consultant Andy Bounds, there was loads of great tips. The thing that really stuck out to me from Andy though was this mantra of prioritise, diarise and socialise, which is effectively Andy teaching us how we can make sure that we get stuff done and we get it done to the highest level possible.
Do you find with that then that prioritization actually in itself almost becomes a key thing as well? I guess for growth in that, people need to be doing the right things at the right time. So do you find when you go into an organization, sometimes you just happen to kind of almost direct them to those right things?
Yes. So what happens is when we've done our work, so you said about prioritization, and when we finished our work, we do an exercise, and it's 3 words ending in "-ise", which is prioritize, diarise, and socialize. So I'll just explain what I mean by that. So when I finish training an organization, a group of people, we then do the prioritize, the thing you've just said. So what are the things we need to be doing every week? And just how much do you have to do? Just more than none. Like just do more than nothing. So you prioritize the things that are going to work. So for example, for most organizations, cold calling doesn't work and everyone hates it. So don't do that. But for most organizations, speaking to a happy client to ask them to recommend you to somebody else, that does tend to work quite well. So probably do that. So you prioritize things that are most likely to work. That's the first thing we do. And different people prioritize different things, Dan. That's fine. So you might want to go for introductions. I might go for ringing previous customers. It doesn't matter. Prioritize your thing. What we then do is we then do diarise, and we say, right, now you know your priority thing. You've got to put time in your diary. So what I do is I put time in my diary Wednesday morning and Thursday morning, just 20 minutes each day. That's it. So it's only 20, it's 40 minutes a whole week. I have the rest of my week to do my day job, and I put it in Wednesday and Thursday. I don't want to do it Monday and Tuesday, my BD stuff, because I can't be bothered. I want to do my day job then. But Wednesday and Thursday, I have 20 minutes for BD, 20 minutes for BD on both Wednesdays and Thursdays. And I do it in the morning because I get worse during the day. Generally after lunch, I'm just terrible. And then the final thing, so once I've prioritized what I'm going to do, and once I put it in the diary, I've diarized it, the final thing is socialize. And what we mean by that is we ask someone else to hold us to account. Because you know what's going to happen if your diary reminder comes up saying you're supposed to be doing BD now, Andy, and I'm busy doing something else, or I can't be bothered. What I'll do is I'll press dismiss on my diary reminder, and at the end of the week, I'll go, well, it's not my fault, it was time's fault. But if I've got someone who checks up on me on Friday, say, oh, did you ask for your referrals this week, Andy? Did you speak to your previous customers this week? So I always want someone to hold me to account. So polite people call this an accountability partner. I just like to call it a friendly word like socialize. I mean, you could use an unfriendly word, you're being watched. You want someone to watch you to make sure you do this stuff, or you might not. And I would humbly suggest that if any of those 3 are missing, prioritize, diarise, and socialize, if any of those are missing, you will not always be good at BD unless you happen to always be good at BD. So if you don't prioritize, you don't know what you should be doing. If you don't diarise, you don't have any time to do it anyway. And if you don't socialize it, well, who's going to hold you to account if you don't?
On to the second episode now, where I got to speak to Ruler Analytics founder Ian Ledbetter to talk about understanding the power of your marketing. Again, with Ian, we covered lots of great stuff all around marketing measurement and attribution and lots of cool things. But one thing that really stuck out to me was quite a simple phrase that Ian said, and that was understanding what's working now, understand what's not working, and understand what you're going to do in the future.
Well, yeah, I guess the sort of 2 core questions that we always come back to are what's working and what's not working, and what should I do next? So how should I optimize? How should I cut waste? Where should I allocate budget? And those are the sort of 2 core questions we're always trying to help answer. There might be a lot of very specific individual use cases below that, but it always comes back to those 2 things really.
What would your take be on kind of GA4 right now? Is how would you advise marketers to either use it or potentially look elsewhere to analyze their performance?
Obviously, yeah, it depends on client to client. Obviously, we still think it's it's a useful tool for website behavior, traffic, trends, and what have you. I think the consensus we've kind of got to with clients we speak to is that it's not fit for purpose if you're trying to measure media impact or revenue. So particularly if you've got multiple ad platforms that you run in, you're not going to get to the answer that you need from it. So, I mean, obviously you have to take it, take a view on it yourself. But I guess the acid test for me would be, you have to look at the reports and say, how closely does this, fit my business reality? So if my objective is revenue, does my revenue in Google Analytics match with, my revenue and my source of truth in CRM? Does it have my spends in from my different ad platforms? So on and so forth. So, if we go back to those two sort of key business driver questions, what's working and what's not working, what should I do next? Where should I allocate budget? Where should I optimize? Where should I cut waste? If you can answer those questions using the reports you've got, then you've probably got enough. But in our experience, if you're running multiple ad platforms and you've got different revenue sources, you're probably not going to have the full picture in Google Analytics. And that's why people come to us to help to solve those problems, really. So we wouldn't write it off. If you're just running Google Ads, Microsoft Ads, say you're not doing any type of funnel, you're doing, you've got e-commerce transaction on the website that's tracked in GA, it might be good enough. But we certainly found that, the shift to GA4 away from universal analytics and the lack of third-party cookie view-throughs on platforms has kind of been a bit of a tipping point for people to say, we need something a bit more sophisticated now.
Is there anything particular that you'd kind of like to leave to the listeners and viewers to say, this is what you should be looking at implementing in your business now to set you up for the future?
I guess, the most useful thing I could say is it comes back to those two questions really is, are you able to answer the question of what's working and what's not working? And what would I do next? So how would I optimize? How do I cut out waste? What should I do more of? And I just basically implore people to look at the reporting, see if they feel like they have the answers to those sort of commercial questions. And if they don't, then there's obviously, solutions like ourselves that can bring more insight.
Now to episode 3, the brand foundation. This time I sat down with Womblebond Dickinson CMO Lee Grinnell and Moneypenny's own head of brand and comms Sabina Kerwan. We talked all things brand and marketing. One thing that came out strong though is that brand is much more than skin deep and that brand is everybody's responsibility.
I think it'd be good to kind of kick off talking about why building a strong brand is important for growth. So Lee, I don't know if you'd like to kind of take that one first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting one actually, because so kind of not making things too difficult right at the outset. Brand's one of those slightly kind of tricky words and concepts generally, but I think specifically in professional services in terms of what do we mean by brand, and therefore what is a strong brand. And I think I was kind of thinking about this, the easiest way to, set out some thoughts and kind of almost sort of some different levels of thinking about it. I think you've got that kind of core piece of just brand awareness. Do people know of you and know that you exist at all? Once you've done that piece, you kind of move up into that sort of salience world. Okay, do people think about you at the right time and in the right situations? And then into that kind of almost sort of holy grail territory of brand perception. Do they think the right sort of things about you? And if you get all of those elements right, into that space of brand equity, is there something in the your name and your reputation that means people are more likely to choose you than a competitor? There, it gives you that pricing power. You can suddenly start kind of charging more. And I think, so for me, I suppose, kind of thinking about, defining almost what is brand. That's kind of one of those ways of thinking about it, that concept of brand equity. And I think the interesting thing in professional services, this may or may not be different to other markets. There are an awful lot of law firms and accountancy firms and actuaries and so forth. So it's incredibly competitive, just in the sheer volume of players. But also it's an industry that is, in terms of actually the core offering, largely undifferentiated. Most law firms, I just use law as, as the world that I'm in, most law firms do the same kind of things in the same kind of ways for the same kinds of clients. we have the same sorts of suppliers, the same sorts of tech products. So actually in that sort of world, uh, yeah, what is it that sets you apart? It's really difficult to differentiate yourself purely on technical skill and expertise. So I think in that sense, suddenly brand becomes even more important as a way of differentiating yourself. So yeah, I think it's absolutely critical from that perspective.
That sounds great. Yeah, it's really yeah, I think the way you express that there for professional services is kind of hitting the nail on the head, isn't it? That law firms will do the same thing, accountants will do the same thing. So your point of differentiation almost has to be your brand, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess, we're kind of similar for us in a Moneypenny context, isn't it? A lot of our competitors out there would be offering the same type of service as us. So how do you approach that from our side of things in terms of differentiating our brand voice?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with what Lee said. It's that holy grail of salience, and I'm really passionate about brand being, lived and every person in the business lives and breathes it. For it to be true and for it to be real and to be felt, and I think that's where Moneypenny, um, the strong cultural element for us has been kind of foundation of our brand, and then there is this almost certainly for our business, there's a flexion point as awareness may be there, but then it's a constant filling that funnel of awareness and making sure that we're top of mind, and then how that is felt day in, day out and experienced by the clients, delivered through our people essentially. And I think sometimes you can be overwhelmed by those thoughts. And like you said, Lee, you think, differentiation. Yeah, we're all doing very similar things. So what have we got to do differently here? It's all well and good logos and things, but again, I think it goes back to just staying focused. What you do, how you do it, how well you're doing, you're delivering it, and just stay on those key points of difference and hammering them home.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting actually. I was just thinking back. So when I think about when I was the agency side, when we were working as 13, we used to talk about almost those three elements of how do you articulate what it is that sets you apart, your positioning, how do you communicate it, and how do you demonstrate it? Almost when you kind of just kept hammering those 3 points: articulate, communicate, demonstrate. And yeah, exactly as you say, that consistency of just hammering it all the time, and everything people see and feel and touch and experience, to use that slightly overused word, yeah, does it give that consistent message? Which is, again, I think is one of those interesting challenges for professional services, and probably in any service industry, rather than a sort of a product or FMCG world where you've got, so many different people working with clients and different types of clients, getting that consistency across a business of 100, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people. Yeah, that's a massive challenge.
For episode 4, I got to speak to legal management consultant Simon McCrum, and our topic was growing your business profitably and sustainably by changing clients' lives. Again, Simon was full of lots of great tips from all the different law firms he's worked with, but my favourite thing that Simon spoke about was Bentley pricing, Bentley service. What's the balance there for you? How do you advise a managing partner to approach that and approach how they resource their team to manage a caseload?
I love your question, Dan. What I've been talking about so far is one side of the coin. If I lined 100 or 1,000 clients up out there and I said, go on, give me your wish list of your lawyers. I'll tell you what their wish list will be. It will sound like a really good lawyer. They need to know the technical law. I don't want to be tripped up by the other side. I need someone who can put that in my language. I want someone who's going to push my case, going to tell me all the time where the case is up to and what's coming next. And I want them to fight for me. And actually, I want them to be really nice. And I want them to talk to me every day. And I want it for free. Okay, that's where the wheels come off. because until the first 8 points, that's called changing clients' lives. But this is two sides to this coin. Those first 8 points, if you do all those things, push and tell and fight and all that kind of stuff, that's a Bentley. I call that a Bentley service. Lots of law firms, I'm telling you, I've been there. Lots of law firms only deliver what you might call a Ford price, or an old, I don't want to be demeaning to any particular brand, but a lesser service. Ford service, and actually that's okay to charge a Ford price for. Bentley service. Now that's a different ballgame. Bentley's are dear. Not everyone can afford them. I am an advocate of Bentley service for a Bentley price. And so in my law firm, I said to you earlier, I openly talk and write about what I did right and what I did wrong. What I did right, we gave Bentley service. Our whole brand ethos strategy could be summed up, and everyone did sum it up in the firm by this: a great service, every lawyer, every time, guaranteed. Bentley service. I didn't know then what I know now, Dan. So I didn't charge a Bentley price. I gave a Bentley service for a Ford price. So coming back to your question and the whole theme of this, how do you grow profitably and sustainably by changing clients' lives? The answer is twofold. You deliver the Bentley service, but you charge a Bentley price. That now means that if the team leader now goes to the management and said, look, I need 3 junior lawyers. I do things graphically. I need 3 vessels because I've got enough work to fill 3 vessels. Then the managing partner, with the right kind of business mind amongst his people, will say, right, well, we'll get those. Right, you've got the work, have you? Fine. Well, you can have 3 vessels. Let's make sure they're good vessels, and because we can fill them quite quickly, and they're going to turn that work, that Bentley service, into Bentley money. And that's the missing bit that we have in the legal profession. And it used to be okay, but it's not okay anymore. I use the phrase now when I speak and write, the elastic has snapped. It used to be okay because there was a bit left over. There was always a bit left over, bit of the money, the Ford money. Now, the salaries are so high, overheads, insurance, rent, IT costs, regulation costs, everything is now so high that having a bit of money left over is not enough. And the words often used to me by chief execs and managing partners, the walls are closing in. And that's this year. Next year, everything's going to be dearer. You try telling your good vessels, your good lawyer, you try telling them, listen, no more pay rises for 5 years, guys. Sorry. What's going to happen? You haven't got the vessels anymore. So we now go back to storage and losing money. So it's a two-sided coin. Bentley service, Bentley price.
In episode 5, I got to speak to the 2 co-founders of Setford Solicitors to talk all things workplace culture. Again, lots of great stuff that Setfords have implemented over the years to improve their business, but the key message that came through time and time again was to make sure that you prioritise your people if you want to grow your business.
Directly. What do you think drives that? Do you think it's more a question of the model that you've built or the culture that you guys have become recognised for? Or is it a kind of combination of the both?
I think it's both. I mean, of the 180 lawyers that joined last year, a good chunk of those lawyers came on board because the lawyers that are already working with us had gone out, had recommended to their friends, look, if come and take a look at what we're doing at Setfords. And they wouldn't do that if there wasn't a good culture, if they weren't having a good, a positive experience. So I think culture has played a key part in terms of the lawyers that we already work with, reaching out to their contacts and their relationships and saying, look, this is a really great place to be a lawyer. You come and take a look. So of course that's important, but equally, the culture that we have internally amongst employed staff that are providing the support that we provide is just as important. We've been doing this a long time now, and some of the people that are with us today, they started with us 15, 16 years ago, and they're still here. And every day their roles are everybody here is focused on providing a really high level of support and a good home for our lawyers. so that our lawyers feel comfortable, supported, that that they're a part of a really sort of positive community. So I think it's both, but the culture that we've sort of built from scratch over many, many years, I think it flows through everything we do here internally in terms of looking after our lawyers and also the lawyers themselves within the network around the country.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked hard on developing a people-first culture for all the reasons that Chris just mentioned. It's important to us that we look after all of the people that are in the business, including, the head office staff and the lawyers. And I think that carries through the business, and people appreciate that. It's something that we've always done. We've always taken that same approach because we believe it's the right way to run the business.
Makes sense. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned about people that have been with you on the journey for a long time, with 15 years plus. It's actually very similar to kind of what it's like at Moneypenny as well. I think it's a really great thing when there are people that have been with the business for a long time, and here at Moneypenny we've got the names of those people up on the walls, so the people are being really recognised. And I know lots of people will say things like, we've got a great culture, we're doing a lot for our people, but the proof's really kind of in the people staying with the business for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. And the growth point that you raise, it's an important part of that. The people that work here understand that the growth of the business provides them with more opportunities. So, some of the people that have been here for that long, for 15 years, they came in and it might have been in many instances it was a starter role. They were at the start of their careers. They've progressed their careers through this business, and in most instances, they're either C-suite, senior members. They've moved from support departments in terms of legal service delivery into marketing. They've moved into sales. They've moved across the business. And as we've grown the business and built out departments and built out the different sort of layers of support that we provide our lawyers, that's provided additional opportunities for our staff. So I think the first question you asked is, how integrated is growth to culture. I think very, because the people here within the business understand what they're working for.
Yeah, and the lawyer base, we've also part of our support offering is we've got a wellbeing department within the business. We're one of the first law firms to introduce that department, and it provides an extra layer of support to our lawyers. It's an opportunity for us to find out, ways we might be able to improve what we're doing. It's a way of identifying which lawyers might want to work together. And it really helps create a real community feel amongst our lawyer base, which is also really important to our growth journey. People feel part of something here, despite the fact that lawyers mostly are working remotely from home or from a hub office somewhere else in the country. They feel part of something, they feel included. And that's also been part of the success story for us.
That sounds great. There's quite a few things there that you mentioned are quite interesting. I noted down that you mentioned about creating that people first culture, and creating those kind of well-being initiatives in the business. So it'd be good to understand a little bit more about kind of what that means and how you use that to build the relationships with the lawyers that work for you.
Well, there's constant communication every day between our head office staff and our lawyer base because of the way we operate the business. So all day our head office staff are communicating with our lawyers from the admin, secretarial teams. We've got a marketing and business development team as well, which is also an area of support that we introduced a number of years ago because it adds something else to the relationship we have with our lawyers and shows we're not only supporting them with the actual administrative work to process transactions, but we're also assisting them in generating leads and inquiries. So there's a lot of interactions there. The interactions with the wellbeing department that I just mentioned take place on a daily basis, really, where we've got people reaching out to our lawyers on a regular basis. There's get-togethers, there's webinars that are organised by that department across various different subjects. Some of it might be to do with their own well-being, health and well-being. Some of it might be to do with how they might be able to market their services and make improvements. So it's a real mixture of sort of support and contact that the lawyers have on a daily basis, which really maintains that sort of sticky relationship
that we have with our lawyers. But fundamentally, as Chris has already mentioned, it's the fact that our head office support understand the relationship we have with our lawyers, and they all work together in order to ensure that what we're really doing is providing an amazing service to clients. That's ultimately what we're all here to do. But it's a joined up approach, and I think everybody in the business understands what we're doing, particularly at head office, in order to deliver that service to the lawyers, who then deliver a great service to the clients.
Episode 6 was called The Growing Importance of SDR Teams, and again I was joined by one of Moneypenny's own, Simon Burleson, to talk about how he's built our SDR team from scratch. It was a great episode covering off lots of different things about SDR teams and the value they have to businesses, but Simon gave us some really interesting insights on what makes a great SDR person.
I'm interested as well in that journey you mentioned there, because obviously in those 3 years you've gone from, like, there was no SDR team, there's now a team of 10, there's also people in the US, so you've kind of grown that team internationally as well. Interested, like, kind of how you found that journey, what challenges you might have found as someone leading an SDR team, and that other businesses could learn from in that as well.
Yeah, so it was a challenge. I've absolutely made mistakes. We've had to go and obviously really look at actually what has worked, what hasn't worked. So yes, all the success is absolutely brilliant, but it's not been plain sailing from start to finish. I think one of the kind of the learnings from us is we didn't necessarily have all the tech that we started off with, or that we have now when we started. So in terms of that list building and the account approach, and it was very much just kind of almost dealing with what we got, because we had to almost prove the model first. Then it was a case of going to really refine it. I think hiring, recruitment, that piece there equally was I've never done it before. I've never hired someone. I've never thought about that kind of full interview. So yes, obviously we've got great HR, we've got working life teams here at Moneypenny. So and recruitment teams as well. So, but actually, how do you go and find and spot that talent? And actually, that became a process in itself to be able to really think. Actually, I know what a good SDR looks like. I know how to be a great SDR. I've obviously done that job, that role myself. So actually, but it's then being able to go and spot that in someone, and almost, is it something? What traits are you looking for that can really go and help the team excel? Are they coachable? Are they resilient? Are they do they have that drive and that determination that is going to make them create something from nothing? And those key areas that are so crucial to that growth. Obviously, if we got it wrong, it could have a massive impact on the team, particularly with the size of it. So that's kind of some of the dangers that we were exposed to and the pitfalls that we might have had. But yeah, I think that overall journey, if you put your finger on it, it's scaling from that more generic approach, casting that net quite wide, to now we're on that journey that a lot of SDR teams are on, in terms of really becoming target account focused.
You mentioned obviously when you said about hiring there as well, you know what a good SDR looks like to you and the team at Moneypenny. Like, are there certain characteristics that you could say like define a good SDR, or at least what you look for when you're hiring an SDR role?
First word that comes to mind is resilience. We can't escape it. It is a tough job.
Yeah.
It is the some days 60, 70, 80 calls a day. You might only go and get one connected call. So it's how you manage that. Obviously not every day is like that as an SDR. You can then go and have the complete flip side, and you could be speaking to 10, 11, 12, 15, 20 people on really fantastic days. Resilience is a key one, because you've got to be able to manage those kind of ups and downs as kind of that you're going to experience. Curiosity, I'd say, is a key one. Again, it goes back to that point around we create something from nothing. No one's going to do this job for you. No one really is going to say, yeah, I'm ready for an appointment. You've got to go and create it. You've got to create that need, that value. You've got to understand it. You've got to drill home those kind of reasons why. So that curiosity and that drive is, I'd say, another key trait. Emotional intelligence, again, it links to resilience, but that whole piece around, look, how you manage yourself, how kind of day to day, that has such an influence in how successful that you are. But then I think the kind of final one for me would be more around coachability. being able to say it's wanting to learn more, but then equally being able to be able to take feedback in a really positive and constructive way. And that's always the aim in terms of any feedback that we do give as a team. You're always saying, look, this is what was great on the call. However, this achieved this, but if you might go and try this, you might actually get a completely different outcome or result. And that's where those learnings come in. So that coachability piece, but you've got to want to learn. That's there's very different. That's very different from just learning. You've got to actually kind of really want to learn and then go and apply it, I would say.
And for our latest episode, number 7, I got to sit down with Claremont's workplace psychologist, Becky Turner. Without doubt, Becky's one of the people with the coolest jobs I've ever heard of, and Becky had loads of great stuff to talk about. The most interesting part, though, was this notion of the destination office, a term that Claremont have coined in some of their marketing materials. It'd be good to get you to talk us through some of those, maybe starting with the destination office and like kind of what that is and what that means to Claremont.
Yeah, so they're kind of in chronological order. So if we start with the destination office, as you suggest, we clearly in 2020, a lot of things changed for a lot of organizations. And for us, it was very much catalyst in a direction we were already going in with agile working, activity-based working. And it probably propelled our clients and their thinking like 5-10 years in advance, which meant that our solutions had to change quickly. And we weren't fighting a closed door anymore. So we sort of coined this term, the destination office. And whether or not it was in the lockdown brains, our marketing guy, Richard, he was thinking, okay, pub. I'd like to be in a pub. And he thought, okay, you got there's a logic to this. Your home office, that's like your local pub. Mm-hmm. So that's where you'd go. You could just go in like your comfies and the person behind the bar knows what you're ordering. It's just your commute is literally down the road.
Yeah.
In terms of your home office, it might just be across the landing or downstairs to your kitchen table or something. But it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
It's what you know. You created that space around you to make it work for you. Mm-hmm. But then you've got your destination pub, which is like your gym bar or your wine bar. And you go to that on certain occasion. You might book a table. You might dress up for it. And you're going with intention because you want to get a meaningful experience out of that. So for us, that at that point was the office. We kind of knew that there was going to be a change. This hybrid working was going to be here to stay. So what is going to entice people into the office? And what do we need to provide in the office to then suit that meaningful journey? Mm-hmm. What's going to earn the commute? So there's a whole load of different elements of the workplace that fall into this new blueprint. One being like the academy, so somewhere you're going to learn and be mentored. Mm-hmm. You've got your retreat spaces and the park, which is bringing either plants into the office or it's your views outside or it's just imagery of the outside. Mm-hmm. So your forum, which is where you can all get together, your big sort of town hall event space to talk about the business as a whole and how you're performing. You've got your gallery, which is like your brand beacon and how you interpret your brand throughout. So all of these different elements are going to, that there's more to it as well, but they're going to kind of enhance your experience when you're there. Mm-hmm. So that was the meaning of the destination office at the time. And how we design is sort of around that. So we're thinking, okay, each client or each partner of ours is going to have a different need for a different amount of space for each of these elements, or some will be joined together. So your cafe space and your forum space are often as one. Yeah. So you reconfigure, it's similar to your pub. You reconfigure the seating to make it work for an event.
Mm-hmm. And there you have it, 7 things I've learned from 7 amazing guests so far. Stay tuned for the next episode of On The Up, where you'll hear lots more great tips. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the On The Up podcast, brought to you from Moneypenny. Stay tuned for our next episode coming soon.